I'm home.
Oh, thank goodness.
And I brought everything.
Presents.
The December wind howled like a pack of wolves through the cracks of our tiny homestead cabin, and my daughter Lily pressed her thin face against the frost-covered window, waiting for a miracle. We had not a single bite of meat or even a stale biscuit left in the larder, and the nearest town was 3 days' ride through snowdrifts taller than a man. I knelt before the dying fire, fighting back tears of despair, whispering a prayer that I might find the strength to comfort my child when her stomach ached with hunger on Christmas Eve. Lily turned from the window and asked in her small, hopeful voice whether God would send us a Christmas angel like the ones in the stories her papa used to tell before the fever took him. I opened my mouth to offer some gentle falsehood about angels, but before a single word could escape, a heavy knock struck the door with the force of a thunderclap, and we both froze. Before you discover who stood on the other side of that door and how he changed everything, make sure to smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a story from Weston Taylor's Official. With trembling fingers, I lifted the wooden latch and pulled the door open to reveal a tall, snow-dusted cowboy whose broad shoulders nearly filled the doorframe, his hazel eyes warm as embers despite the bitter cold. He held a massive canvas sack over one shoulder and a freshly dressed turkey in his other hand, and behind him his horse stomped impatiently, laden with bulging saddlebags that promised even more treasures. He introduced himself as Cole Tanner, a drift cowboy who had been riding through the pass and got caught in the storm, and he asked with a polite, rough-edged voice if we could spare a corner of our hearth for a frozen stranger. "I got no payment, except this here feast I've been hauling to a ranch that turned out abandoned," he said, holding up the turkey, "and it would be a crying shame to let it go to waste on Christmas Eve." Lily squealed and danced around the cabin, her hunger momentarily forgotten, and I felt a lump rise in my throat as I nodded, welcoming him in with a gratitude that I could not put into any words. Cole stomped the snow from his boots and immediately set to work, spitting the turkey over the fire with a practiced hand while pulling sacks of flour, dried apples, and a precious tin of real coffee from his pack. Within an hour, the cabin smelled of roasting meat and fresh biscuits, and for the first time since my husband passed, the walls echoed with laughter as Lily peppered Cole with 100 curious questions. He answered each one with a gentle patience, telling stories of long cattle drives and starry nights on the prairie, his eyes crinkling at the corners every time Lily giggled at his tall tales. As I stirred the gravy, I caught him watching me with a quiet intensity that sent an unexpected flutter through my chest, and I quickly looked away, almost ashamed of my own suddenly beating heart. We sat down to a Christmas feast so abundant that Lily declared it a miracle, and before we ate, Cole removed his hat and asked if he might say grace, a request that surprised me with its deep tenderness. He bowed his head and thanked the Almighty for guiding him to a warm hearth and kind company. And then he added, "Thank you for the hands that will share this food with a lonely drifter like me." After dinner, Lily fell asleep curled on the braided rug with a full belly and a candy stick Cole had produced from his pocket like a magician, and we watched her with a shared, tender silence. Cole helped me clean the dishes, his large hands surprisingly gentle with my mother's chipped china, and we talked quietly, learning the shape of each other's sorrows and the names we had buried long ago. I learned that he had lost his own family to cholera years ago and had been wandering ever since, searching for a place that felt less like a campsite and more like a permanent home. When the fire burned low and the blizzard raged outside, I offered him my late husband's bedroll by the hearth, and he accepted with a gratitude that made me feel oddly protective of this strong, lonesome man. Christmas morning dawned clear and brilliant, the snow glittering like a field of diamonds, and Cole shoveled a path to the barn and fed our scrawny milk cow before I even had the coffee boiled. Lily begged him to stay for Christmas dinner, and he glanced at me with a question in his eyes that made my heart trip and stumble before I nodded, saying we would be honored to have him. That day, He fixed a broken hinge on the chicken coop, mended the sagging roof beam, and whittled a small wooden horse for Lily that she would treasure until her dying day. As the days passed, the blizzards kept the trails closed, and Cole stayed on, earning his keep with chores and filling the cabin with the steady, reassuring rhythm of a good man's presence. He never imposed, always sleeping in the barn loft after the first week, but he was there for every meal, every evening story, and every moment that Lily needed a strong arm to swing her up and play. I found myself lingering longer over my hair in the morning and humming old tunes while I kneaded dough, the heavy cloak of widow's grief slowly slipping from my shoulders. One evening, while Lily was tucked in bed, Cole and I sat on the porch beneath a canopy of stars, and he confessed that he had lied about getting caught in the storm that very first night. He had passed our cabin months earlier, seen me weeping by the grave of my husband, and had carried the memory of my grief like a splinter ever since, vowing to return and help if he could. I stared at him in stunned silence, completely unable to speak, and he added, "I bought that turkey with the last of my pay, hoping you would let me in, and I have been praying ever since that you would let me stay." Tears blurred my vision as I reached out and took his work-roughened hand, feeling the warmth of a man who had walked into my life carrying not just a feast, but a future I thought I would never have. With a voice thick with emotion, I told him that he had already stayed in our hearts from the moment he knocked, and that we never wanted him to leave. I never wanted him to leave. Cole pulled me gently into his arms, and when his lips brushed my forehead with the softness of a sacred promise, the cold winter air seemed to melt into the warmth of 1,000 springs. By spring, we stood before the same preacher who had married my parents, with Lily as our flower girl scattering wild columbine petals, and we exchanged vows under the cottonwood tree by the creek. Cole sold his string of horses and bought a small herd of cattle, becoming a rancher in truth, and he built a new room onto the cabin with his own hands, a room that would soon become a nursery. Lily took to calling him Papa Cole, and the first time she did, the tough cowboy had to step outside and compose himself, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs of pure, overwhelming joy. Our ranch prospered under the combination of his know-how and my diligence, and every Christmas we hosted a grand feast for any wandering soul who had no place to go, just as Cole had once been. The neighbors would remark that the widow Miller had found herself a Christmas miracle, and I always smiled and replied that the miracle had arrived on 2 strong legs and had never stopped giving. I often thought back to that freezing December night when we had no dinner for Christmas, and I realized that the greatest blessings often arrived disguised as a need we did not even know we had. Cole grew old with me on that mountain, his hair turning the color of snow-dusted granite, but his eyes always held that same warm ember glow he had worn the first time I saw him in the doorway. We raised 3 more children after Lily, and each one learned to ride and rope under their father's patient tutelage, growing up with the same steadfast kindness that defined him every single day. When the children asked how we met, Cole would always grin and say, "Your mama was starving, and I happened to have a turkey, so I decided to invite myself to dinner and never found a good reason to leave." The story of the lonely cowboy who knocked on our door with a feast and never left became a favorite among the valley folk, retold at every Christmas gathering as a reminder that hope arrives unexpectedly. Even after the children were grown and scattered across the territory, the cabin remained a beacon on Christmas Eve, its windows glowing with candles and the door unlocked for any stranger in need. I learned from Cole that a home is not built of logs and mortar, but of the hearts that choose to stay, even when it would be far easier to ride off into the wilderness all alone. If this story of a Christmas miracle and the healing power of a simple knock on the door has touched your heart, then you are part of the Western Tales official family, and we welcome you with open arms. We hope you will take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below, because every voice adds warmth to our community and every story reminds us that we are never truly alone. Give this video a hearty like if you believe that the best gifts come wrapped not in paper but in the Kindness of a stranger who becomes so much more. And do not forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss another legendary Western tale that will stir your soul and warm your heart all week long. Until next time, keep your doors open to the weary traveler, your hearts warm with generosity, and your hearts ready for the miracles that arrive on the very coldest of nights. Remember that sometimes the greatest feasts are not those on the table, but the love shared across it, transforming a simple house into a home and strangers into a family forever. From all of us at Western Tales Official, we wish you a season of peace, a lifetime of stories, and the courage to answer the door when hope comes knocking at last. Ride on, dear friends, and may your own Christmas memories be filled with the kind of love that starts with a single knock and echoes joyfully through countless generations. Thank you for being part of this incredible journey, and we will see you in the next video, where another untamed frontier story awaits your eager ears and your open heart. Goodbye, partner, and always remember that when you have nothing left, a stranger's kindness can fill your cup to overflowing and change your entire life forever.